Okay, I'm back. I am looking at slide number 7. And if I only had looked at slide number 7 before I turned off the last video, I would have covered it then because it's the last of the general comments about the autonomic nervous system. And in it, what it talks about is it says there is neuronal divergence is going to predominate in the sympathetic nervous system. You get that? What does that mean? So when we were talking about nerve outputs before, we had talked about how they could be convergent or divergent. So we had said convergent meant that you had a lot of inputs to produce a few outputs. When we talk about neuronal divergence, it means one output affects all kinds of stuff simultaneously, right? And so the sympathetic division tends to have a much broader effect because of this neural divergence. So a single or a few outputs are going to affect all kinds of stuff. Okay, that's the last of the introductory stuff. So then we're going to talk, but we have to talk about each of these two divisions. So just a little bit of sort of an outline of what's coming up. We're going to be talking about how the, we'll talk about these different outputs, and then we get to the really fun stuff, and we're going to talk about the different receptor types. So it's the autonomic nervous system gets very complicated, but we just break it down one step at a time and just keep on keeping on, right? All right, so we're going to flip on over to slide number 8. And I have a picture here. I'm going to see if I can make this picture a little bit bigger. Yeah, see if it's where we can really see it. And what it's going to be is a blow-up of a dissected human brain, spinal cord, and you're going to see a lot of stuff that maybe you don't expect to see. So take a look at this. All right, so you see the brain and the spinal cord here, and we had said that we have ganglia. That's what these are right here, and then we have some others that were around the front of this, around the front of the spinal cord. They've sort of separated them out, but you can see that we have these rows of ganglia here, and then we have something called pre-vertebral ganglia that would be curved around front that are visible as well. I think it's a very interesting photo and important to look at, just so that we can understand what I'm talking about here. So the rows of ganglia, you can see we're only showing one side of them here. This is what we call the sympathetic trunk ganglia. And it's on the other side. You can see it's on both sides of this skull here, or of the dissected out spinal cord and brain. And you can see that we have outputs to the ganglia. And remember, we said we have the preganglionic neurons, that's all of these here, and the postganglionic neurons on the other side. And you can see that there are these complicated pathways that go through these other ganglia, and those are the ones that I'd called the pre-vertebral ganglia. So, and look at the outputs. Okay, so this is the sympathetic division, and it is also known as the thoracolumbar division. Now look at where the outputs are. This is thoracic And then we get down here into the lumbar region. So the sympathetic division produces its outputs through spinal nerves from the thoracic and lumbar portions of the spinal cord. And that would be the preganglionic neurons, right? Because we said we got another one before you get to the effector, which will be the postganglionic neuron. All right, so let me go to the next slide here. So, and this is the one where we're talking about the pre-vertebral ganglia. And we had said they're stretched out here to the side, but they're really wrapped around the front there. So we had said that we have these two different sets of ganglia. We'll talk about the pathway that they can take. I mean, it's interesting. Interesting to me, anyway. So the preganglionic neuron can come out, straight out from the spinal cord to the sympathetic trunk ganglia, and it can have a synapse right there, right, with the postganglionic neuron. You can have a synapse right there, or it can come out to that sympathetic trunk and go up and have a synapse, or it can come out to that sympathetic trunk ganglion and go down and synapse there. And then, what's the other option? It can come out, go up or down, and continue on to the pre-vertebral ganglia. So there's all different locations where we can have that synapse with the postganglionic neuron. And so basically, you come out here and you either go up or down the sympathetic trunk ganglia, and either have a synapse in the sympathetic trunk ganglia, or you keep on moving until you come out here to the pre-vertebral ganglia, and you have your synapse there. Now, I said there's always an exception. And we had said in our very first video, the last one, in our first video, we had said that in almost every case in the autonomic nervous system, you're going to have two neurons. Well, this is our exception. Our exception to that has to do with the adrenal medulla. So if you remember from last semester, yeah, you have to remember stuff. We had talked about the adrenal gland sitting on top of the kidneys. And so what happens is in the sympathetic division outputs to the adrenal gland, the preganglionic neuron extends out to the sympathetic trunk ganglion through a pre-vertebral ganglion and directly synapses with the adrenal gland. That is our exception to the two neuron rule when we talk about the autonomic nervous system. So that is the other potential pathway for the neurons extending out. Now, in every other case, wherever we had said, the preganglionic neuron comes out to one of those ganglia, and it will have a synapse with a postganglionic neuron, which will then continue on its merry way out to the effector, right? Either cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, or glands. All right, let's see what else I need to say here. Okay, so one other point. Remember those pre-vertebral ganglia, the ones that I said are wrapped around the front? They're going to be the outputs that go through them are going to be below the diaphragm. So they're going to be in, the effectors for them will be in the abdominal cavity, whereas the ones that are up higher that only go through the sympathetic trunk ganglia, they're going to be taking care of controlling organs above the diaphragm in your thoracic cavity and above. Okay, what else? Let's see. This is fun. Follow the ganglions, yeah. Okay, so Okay, so, all right, so we're going to leave it at that for now with regards to the sympathetic division. And because on slide 10, I see that we had said that we have presynaptic or preganglionic neurons that extend all the way to the adrenal gland. That was what I just mentioned. So slide number 11, we'll come back and we'll start talking about the parasympathetic division. This is that other division. All right, I'll be right back.